Hi, I'm Darren Aquino. Welcome to another episode of Cold Wind Talk. Today we have a special show, but this show is dedicated to my co-producer. Um, as you know, I'm Darren Aquino, my co-host and combat Vietnam veteran, decorated. And I like to emphasize decorated because today what's going on in our country, we can never forget our veterans. The freedom we have is the freedom they fought for. A lot of men and women died present. And back in the day, a lot of men died because it was a man's war. And now we have courageous Americans, men and women, going to the battlefield. So I'm just grateful for all of them. And I want to say to all of you veterans listening, coming from 7 generations in my family, my nephew is still serving, Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Sferrazza. Today, we just want to recognize uh, Cole Van Nevis Jr., Van Nevius Jr., sorry. Today he celebrates his birthday in heaven. So this show is dedicated to him and his son Carl. Um, Love of family is what the country's about. And today's going to be an amazing show because we're going to tell you the truth. We're going to tell it to you here. This is not fake news. This is just true words of what's going on in life. You know, we're not affiliated to any sort of media outlet where we report on behalf of politics. We report to the American people, and the American people report from our platform. And we're very proud to have a guest with us today. And Johnny Peets is going to tell you who he is because it's very special. Now, listen to me, very special. It's very special. And we thought it'd be appropriate today, what's going on, to remind all of you, my fellow Americans, where we are today. And these are the men who sacrificed before us. And you're going to hear about it. Johnny, take it away. Tell us
Okay,
about our
hello
guest.
everyone. Wish everybody, I hope you had a happy new year. I'd like to introduce my very good friend, Paul Charles. He was a Vietnam veteran with me in Vietnam. In my recon platoon, we were together. Actually, he was my squad leader. And he received the Purple Heart and Distinguished Service Cross. And he has a great story to tell. And he's been through a lot. And I just want to let you know that we just got together after 50 years. I finally looked him up. I got a hold of him, and we've been in contact now for about almost a year now, Paulie, right? Anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend Paul Charles. All right,
Okay.
Paul, take it away, buddy.
John found me. He found me after 50 years. We hadn't seen each other. I didn't even know if John survived the attack. But he finally got a hold of me and really surprised me. I was going down the road, got a call, and it said New York. And I thought, well, I don't know anybody from New York, so I wasn't going to answer it. But I got home, and he left me a message. And that's when we made our first contact. That's been about a year ago, I guess. Yeah, it's been a long time. I don't know how many of the guys actually survived the attack, but glad to hear
John,
from.
Charles,
Paul.
Paul, do us a favor. Uh, the audience that's listening and watching, we're in 78 countries. We got a delay here today. I don't know how many people are watching right now, but they're going to get to see it playback. Uh, Thank you for your service first, and Happy New Year to you. Uh, could you set the stage for you and John so that people understand when you were fighting together? Because you said, I don't know if he survived the attack. Why don't we go there and bring the people, bring us in there with you, where that was and what was going on. And, 50 years later, what was happening to you guys? You became friends, you were fellow soldiers, patriots, defending the country and defending the freedoms and liberties that we have. And I can't stress to thank you enough. So I want the people to feel, as because John talks about the story in the book, and of course we always like to mention the book and Code Media Group, who's part of this, who puts us on the air, and we're doing a lot on this time for John, which incorporates all of you guys, his people. You're his platoon leader. You're there. You're part of the story. So people that want to know about the last goodbye, this is one of John's. Back then, You know, these were Americans coming together, meeting and becoming friends in the midst of war. And you got to remember, they're 19 years old. They're young boys doing a man's job, and I would say they did it well. And I want the people to know what that was like and how you and John came together. Put them in the scene, like bring us there, bring us into that moment, because nobody knows what, like, I don't know if he survived. What was it that you survived, so that the audience could know? I know, but they don't know.
Well, you know, I came into recon. I guess John was already there when I came to recon. We come to Charlie Company with Lieutenant Murphy. Lieutenant Murphy went to a meeting at the command post and come back and said he was going to reorganize the recon platoon, which I guess they'd had some casualties and stuff. And he wanted me to come over there with him. I was his RTO at the time, and I told him, no, I said, they don't last very long. And finally, I give in to him, decided I'll go to recon. And he said, well, now that you're not carrying the radio, what's going to be your position? I said, well, I'll walk in the back of the file, carry the demolitions for destroying mines and stuff. And he said, okay. So we started there, and it wasn't no time till we got several hits and lost some more people. And he said, now you have no choice. You're a squad leader. So I moved up to squad leader, you know. But anyway, we just done general patrols, a lot of night ambush patrol. That was pretty common with us. So anyway, the day that all this happened, we lined up in two files and was fixing to go out on the edge of Charlie Company there, and the lieutenant was called back to the command post for something. So we stood there a little while, and then he come back, and we move out. Of course, Canuck on the lead element, those three guys move out first. They get out there so far and stop, and then we move up to them. So we done that just one or two times, didn't go out far. And directly Canuck calls back, and he says, I got a bunker up here. So the lieutenant tells him to hold up till we move up to him. So we move up. I can't see the lieutenant squads through the brush, but I can kind of hear them. They check the bunker out, and he said, well, there's nobody in it, but the grass is still trying to stand up behind it. So anyway, he moves out again. You know, he finds another bunker, goes through the same thing. We move back up to him again. Grass is standing up. I don't see anybody around, but the grass is still trying to stand up. Somebody just ran out of it. So when he got to the third bunker, it was a big one. He said, well, I can't see the bottom of it. So the lieutenant told him, throw a grenade in it. So he threw a grenade in it. Now you can't see anything. And we're up even with him, so he moves out again. Well, in about 4 or 5 minutes, just all hell breaks loose. Automatic fire explosions, everything. The lieutenant's hollering for 2-9er Canuck, 2-9er Canuck, and not getting no answer. So he calls over to my squad. My RTO was standing right beside me, the radio, and he says, take your medic and move up. So I take the medic, and then we move up pretty cautiously. Finally, we get down, and we see Canuck on the ground. He's laying flat on his back with his legs crossed and his rifle between his feet, like he would still be trying to fire. And we start crawling up to him. I'm flat on the ground. My rifle's in my left hand. I'm turned to the right. I can see the medic on my right, and we're crawling. They shoot across me and hit the medic in the back 3 or 4 times. And I can nearly feel the powder off the guns, how close we are to them. So finally, I get up a little farther, and I just flip over and get on my rifle. I said, this guy's right in front of me, and if I don't get him, he's going to get me. So it seemed like it was 15, 20 seconds before anything happened. It's just dead silent. Then all of a sudden he moved, and he was laying horizontal flat in the brush over there. But when he moved, you could see them dots on the black pajamas move in the green, you know. So I took care of him and then just went to firing like crazy up through there. And finally, my RTO comes up there, Charles House. He comes up there and falls in and assists. And eventually more and more people come up. You know, well, Canuck's in bad shape. We try to pull him back a little bit. And I tried to give him mouth to mouth, and he's already turning purple or blue. You know, he's in pretty bad shape, and the medic's in bad shape. We tried to put bandages on the medic, and the medic's saying, now you got him too tight. He's trying to tell us how to do it. So anyway, in the process of getting him out, we stay there on the front and keep battling. The lieutenant finally gets up there. I don't know how all this stuff got up there, but somebody brought up an M60 machine gun. I fired it, probably 300 rounds in there. And of course, I had a grenade launcher under my M16. Fired that till I ran out of grenades, and then we started throwing hand grenades. And you couldn't throw a hand grenade straight in; you'd hit the brush. So we'd pop the pin count 1,001, 1,002, throw, and it'd be coming down and explode on the way down on top of them. But this went on for hours and hours, and somebody brought in a recoilless rifle, fired it in there, And what John and them was doing was back here behind me off to my left flank. And, I could hear all kinds of hell going on back there, so I couldn't really tell you what was happening back there. But that just went on and on and on. Finally, I was hit with some shrapnel. Apparently, they thrown some grenades in Charles' house. My RTO, he was sitting beside me, and he had blood running down his shoulder. He got hit with some of the shrapnel. And there, after a while, I pulled back to the area and leave the
Bring your
fighting.
camera down. Your face is off the camera.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, and finally we finally pulled back into the night bivouac area, and the choppers are coming in, lifting out the wounded and everything. So there's nobody on our right flank over there, and it's just open. They could flank us and come around. So we went over and took firepower over there and all for quite a while till it calmed down. And shortly after that, we did get airlifted out back to the medical deal, and we got back there, and they just had rows and rows of body bags there on the ground with people in it. It was an awesome thing, and there was a lot of stuff going on.
I can imagine that was a horrible gun battle, and it went on for hours.
Yeah, and there probably wasn't 20 yards between us. It was.
How many casualties? How many casualties that day?
Well, I think everybody in my squad was wounded. Now, I don't know how many of them might have died from their wounds. And then I think the point element, there was Canuck and two other guys. Canuck and one of the other ones died. Had one guy survive that. And I don't know if in all of Lieutenant Murphy's squad, I think most of them were hit. But it nearly got everybody in the recon platoon and a lot of people in Charlie Company.
Yeah, out of the recon, we've 17 counting Lieutenant Murphy. Okay, now the point men was Canuck, Terry Schneider, and David C. Bender. Bender got hit in the arm right at the initial, as soon as it started.
Yeah.
And Schneider didn't get hit yet. Okay, Canuck was down bad, like he said. Okay, Schneider died later on. He got shot later on, shot stomach. Okay, and because I was right there with him. I carried Canuck out after Charlie and Paul, Charles, and Charlie House got him out, the doc and him. I got them, and I went to get them, put them next to me. And I ended up taking them the rest of the way, right through the open area to the medevac. Doc was paralyzed, shot in the back, paralyzed. Tells me that he couldn't move his legs. He was cold. I don't want to go through the whole big story, but anyway. But to answer your question about the casualties out of the recon, just the recon now, out of the 17, 3 died, okay, and 11 were wounded, okay. So that's how bad we got hit that day, and that's not counting the company now. When Charlie Company came in behind us, they took all kinds of casualties.
What was that? Your immediate group?
Our immediate group.
The 11 and 3.
That was the recon, just the recon platoon. Okay, so we had three KIAs and 11 WIAs that day.
Wow.
And we lost our battalion medic. He took a bullet in the head. Howard Gerstel, his name was. Okay, and that he was with Charlie. He was with the.
These men were all like what, 19, 20 years old.
Our guys were, but Howard Gerstel was in his late 30s. He was an actual MD. Okay, and then we lost other medics from Charlie Company and probably Bravo Company too. So we lost quite a few guys that day, but it was many casualties, many.
Wow, that was
Yeah,
that's just a horrible ordeal when we hear about it, and that's why I'm always upset when they don't treat our veterans with the respect they deserve. Coming from a veteran family, as you know, and everybody knows, I'm the national chief advocate for disabled Americans, veterans, police, firemen, and families, a national civil rights policing group that defends the civil rights of people with disabilities. I started in 1983, before we had a amendment to the Constitution in 1990, starting with Ronald Reagan. I was one of the famous Reagan memos, and I get to find my niche because they wouldn't allow me to serve with a disability. I wanted to because, 7 generations of the family. I figured I could do this. I could shoot, clearly. I wanted in. But, for some reason, and it was funny because your other friend, John, that was on, he had a disability and they took him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah, Gene.
Gene.
Yep.
And these stories are incredible. And as we get ready to put this project together, the last goodbye, we're starting on the cure at the beginning of next week. Dave Haltenbach is going over it. Me and him are going over the production part of it, and with John as well. And then we're going to set up a casting for it. We're going to have a casting call. I've already put a message out there because we have to call in folks that meet the descriptions of some of the main characters in this mini series that I want to produce with John and Dave. I'm an actor as well when I work, which hasn't been for a couple of years. But I'm looking forward to this project because of what it means and telling the stories that are untold for the forgotten soldiers of Vietnam. It took 20 years. I remember when they had the parade, and I remember the controversy. And growing up, and my friends, brothers, and these guys, they were the older guys in the neighborhood. And some went and never came back. When you think about it today, when I think about how old they were, 19, 20, they weren't even 21. And they went and they pull them in at 18. Usually they'd be coming home at 20 as they're approaching 21. They do their 2 years and come home. But here we lost over 58,000 men. And they were boys, a lot of them. Boys that had a future ahead of them. And it just demonstrated so much courage, the attitude of an American going to fight abroad for the freedoms and the values that we hold near and dear in our country. And today, when you see a lot of radicals around, this is like, I don't understand it. I'm not happy about it. Look what's going on, stealing the election. Me and John was watching last night. We were fuming that we're so out of control because these elected folks think they dictate to us. They don't understand we the people. Either they do and they think we're stupid, okay, and we're not. And that's why they're starting to gather in large groups because they're not going to take our country. Nobody's going to do that. And it's just so upsetting to see where we went. We went from this greatness, the great United States. Then we fell, and then we get President Trump. And he starts building it back up. First thing he took care of was the VA. We know how that collapsed. And this is why we have veterans and folks. And over here on Code Wind Talk, we don't care about affiliations. It comes down to the person's behavior. Don't hide under a Republican cap or a Democratic cap or an independent. Okay? You're responsible for your actions, whoever you are. And these criminals, the far left, they're criminals. They're criminals. They robbed our veterans. I can't, as an advocate, and I ran for Congress, they stole my vote. John's still saying he's scratching his head. But we're in federal court. We was there, and we filed it yesterday because of voter fraud and voter suppression of disabled. And if we don't stand up for something, we're going to fall for everything. So we're all taking a stand. That's why we have this show, and that's why you're here, to tell the truth, to tell it as it is. And today, like I was telling John, I said, what we're going to talk about today and the yesterday that you grew up in and the sacrifices you made. How do you feel about today? What's your feeling as a combat veteran who put your life on the line? You got the fire, you took the hit, you came home. How do you feel about the treatment of veterans before, the treatment of veterans now, and the state of our country as a patriotic American, because that's what your service to country says.
Well, some of the things are good, and a lot of the things are not good, you know. And if everybody don't get out there and start voting,
Could you speak up a little bit?
We're going to lose the country if everybody don't get out there and start voting and take care of business. You know, a lot of these younger generation, they don't vote because they think it ain't necessary. It is necessary. We need every vote to count. But,
well, you're talking about 12 million more registered voters. 12 million more. But here's something you may not know while we're talking about my argument. Now, everybody, this person before me, he brought a good argument. So I took some of the content because he put statutes and regulations. And when you make a claim like this, it's called a 1983 claim. It's a claim under the Constitution. Because as a candidate, I was at 18%. I was number one on the ballot. Just being number one gives me a 5% advantage. Historically, 30, 40 years. I fell to 1.25%. Not possible. It's not possible. We had early voter turnout for a primary August 8th. I rose to 18% with the 5%, that's 23%. There was another fella that nobody was crazy about, but he was neck and neck with me. The other candidates, and the one who won, he was at 7%. But he's a controllable figure. He worked in a local legislature here in Florida. He was a friend to one of these rich fellas in the Republican Men's Club that they didn't like me because I came here out of New York, and I received a lot of notoriety from my history as an advocate for the vulnerable for 35 years. And, you know, and that I was an actor too and worked on Sopranos. So they were admiring that. But when they heard my message, I was the only one with a platform that covered it and priorities. And the reporters interviewed me. I wanted to do more for veterans. Priority. Veterans are priority. You have 1,000 homeless veterans here. And I kept saying, they're already elected and they're still on the street. What's the question, everybody? Why do you got to even consider voting for them? If they didn't do nothing the past couple of years, and you have a homeless group of veterans, another 2,000 women with children in the street, and then you hear our elected saying they're going to give 100 million to illegals, and they're fighting the president, saying, "What do you mean? We got to give Ilhan Omar, AOC, Nancy Pelosi. Well, we're not going to release this stimulus unless you sign 100 million over to illegals." Are they out of their mind? That's our tax dollars. So people like that about me. They said, "You're not a politician, Darren." I says, "I'm not. I'm a patriot. I'm going to do what I can do well and leave. I'm not there for a pension. This is my way of serving my country. I'll get a nice paycheck. I'll get my expenses. Blessed am I to have that and to do two things. Make $1, honestly, and do a good thing." That was my intention. And I'm going to come back. This fight is not over. Because here's why. Did you ever see a Braille ballot? Never. And only one state has them, Rhode Island. That's a problem. Because the Americans with Disabilities Act, and I put in the case, what they're supposed to do. I modified Social Security. When they send you a letter, if you're dyslexic or blind, they got to call you. The voting practice is sending out an absentee ballot does not maintain the independence of a disabled person. If you're blind, that means it opens the door to fraud, because say we're two old friends. I'm blind and we live together. I'm Republican, you're Democrat. You'll say to me, "Oh, Darren, let me do that for you. I'll fix it." And you'll vote Democrat. So, because it's not in Braille. The fact that it's not in Braille removes my independence. The fact that it's mailed out to a disabled person demonstrates an opportunity for fraud. It's promoting fraud because it took away the sovereign constitutional right of the disabled person to be there independent. Now, you're a soldier, right? Some soldiers lose their arms and they can't put on prosthesis. How is he supposed to fill out the ballot? Can't do it. He's got to go in. The Board of Election, and I said this in 2014, and this is what I'm good at. And I showed them how they can do it. For COVID, everybody went here like we're doing now. That's why we're doing this now here. They couldn't do that for a voter with face software, face print. We set it up through Social Security, simple software. And the state doesn't get it. The federal government holds it. It's used for cross-reference to access. And then it's a print, there's a video. There's no getting around it. There's no voter fraud. It is ID. You're that person. You're that name. Your vote is clear. It's on audio. That assures and guarantees the constitutional right of the First Amendment of such a fundamental right to make that vote. Did they do it? No, they don't want to do it. That's like they yell for term limits. But you got one congressman here who did 17 years, and he took the seat from the state of Florida without an election. The Congress says every second year. The state can't put you in, so I'm suing under that. They put me in the wrong district. It said in the Ballotpedia, and you could go check this out, Mario Diaz-Balart, Ballotpedia, 25th District of Florida. You're going to say, how did this man regain a seat when they said he won the election outright after the election and primary were canceled? How do you win a canceled election or primary? The state has no authority at all to alter the Constitution. That's a plan. So in mine, I brought in, I sue them to bring them in. And then you let people out because I'm not an attorney. So know who I bring in? I'm bringing in the clerk of the House of Representatives, because in the injunctive relief, I want the clerk to remove him. He's in my office. Now, he had no votes except his own. I went to the courtroom. I'm going into the courtroom. Here's my wife's vote, my uncle's vote, and my vote. I have 3 votes. He has none. I win. Tell him to get out of my office. He had no election. He's not entitled to one. He was complicit with misleading the state, but not the state, us. You serve us. We don't serve you. Imagine that happening. It's there. Look, what do you mean no election? Canceled. And the folks at the Board of Elections said to me, which is not accommodating, she said to me, well, he was unopposed. You didn't present formatted material in Braille, audio. It's the requirement. So when they're saying stop the steal, none of these brilliant lawyers brought this up except me. It's constitutional infringement. 1st, 4th, and 14th, and 6th, your due process. Imagine. Think about it, right? You never probably thought about that. A lot of people are thinking, oh, but they're accommodating. They don't, because they can leverage the vote. Now look at the people in nursing homes. They wanted to use COVID as an excuse. That does not interfere with my right. A homeless person still has the right to vote. You see? So they have to look at the vote, not the person. The person's right. His quality as a citizen, and he's got to live in that state, even if he's homeless. If he lives in a park, for all intents and purposes, that's his home. How does that remove his right to vote? What initiatives did they take to go out? Because the onus is on the entity, not on the citizen. And these folks miss that. Because you know why? A lot of people look at the disabled as, oh, that poor person. We're not a poor person. We have a debilitating condition. We're not a poor person. Some people are, physically, poor. But the Constitution is clear on what the status of the individual is. American-born citizen. That's what I am. That's what you are. That's what John is. And these inherent rights are unalienable. They're sovereign. Don't take my fucking right away. And that's what we're doing. And that's why I have this show. Now, and we're going to win this, or I'm going to sue the judge. Because if you can't recognize what it says in the Constitution, and this is why veterans, and you want to give them a second look, like these are the men, and now today women, that enforce these, and they get treated last on the totem pole. I'm not happy about that. And one of the counts, you see, count 1, which they dismissed this guy's claim, and they had 45 defendants. I put the chief clerk of the House because he got to come out. He's responsible. I'm going to make him testify to what it is. And 42 USC 1983, count 1, U.S. Constitution Amendment 1 and 14. Because in 1983, they stopped the First Amendment and the 14th Amendment, and they call it the Voter Assistance Act. But that still has to interlock with the ADA for more understanding. So it's what they call an interlocutory statute. Okay? And I taught myself, I'm not a lawyer. Okay? So these are this is one, but there's a couple. There's a couple of issues here. But I didn't put all of those codes because I went in pro se. And because I lost $189,000, everything. I borrowed money, I had people doing it because it looked like I was going to win. It was favored. But we knew that 30,000 votes went sideways. You probably heard it on TV in Florida. And it had the president's name on it. Guess what? Mine was there too. So they picked somebody they wanted would be their go. Just because a Republican wins doesn't mean it's good. As you're hearing today and you're seeing now. I would have been good. People were very upset. We couldn't believe it. First I'm at 3,500. Then I went down to 1.25%. That is not possible. After the poll was done, a random poll for 1,000 people, I was neck and neck with he called terrorist. He was an Iraqi. Okay, now a citizen, but nobody liked this man. But apparently, he was right neck and neck with me. So they manipulated the vote. They leveraged it by suppressing me, and I talked to the Republican leader at a breakfast in front of everybody. I said, what accommodations, if any, are you going to make? Oh, we can't do that. It's too complicated. I said, excuse me? What did you say? And I voted for this woman in the court. I told her I'm retracting my vote, and she's not fit to serve. She in her elected, sworn position took an oath to protect the Constitution for the citizens within the state as the commissioner of elections. You're not going to accommodate the disabled? You're not fit to serve. A lot of people take that for granted, and they think, you think, a lot of folks think that they don't have the power. You do. I do. John does. We don't exercise it enough. But I thought I'd share that with you and the viewers because this is real. Now, I'm either going to get an honorable judge or a douchebag judge. Douchebag judge goes on appeal when I come back, and I sue him too because they have a duty, uphold the rights. We had the states in a 2005 case where Sandra Day O'Connor was the swing vote. They have this thing called Rooker-Feldman sovereign immunity. Not anymore. Not after the one judge in Tennessee made a man with no legs crawl up the stairs. And when he refused to do it again, he issued a warrant for him. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. And the courts are supposed to accommodate, but they don't. Try and go into a court, be blind, and tell them what the law says, to provide a note taker, a tape recording, to change the format that is readily achievable for you. If they don't do that, by definition, they violated the law. So I've been focusing on the limitations because that's millions of Americans that didn't get to vote. And they don't want to because they're not accommodated. Do you need to go into the Board of Election and be humiliated? Of course not. Did they go into the hospital and provide? Because it even says in the voter, if they can't get in the building, you're going to go out to the car with the machine and you're going to let that person vote. That's what they have to do. It's the same thing. So when you want to know this vote is not legitimate because it excluded. It would be fair to say out of 150 million disabled Americans, it would be fair to say that the most difficult of disabilities of about 100 million people were not facilitated with their unalienable right to have an accommodation to participate in the First Amendment, so fundamental right as voting. The court can't allow that. The Electoral College is wrong. Some of the states are wrong. We're going to have a runoff. And the manner in which they do it, it has to be safeguarded more. Because I could run up against this guy who was just thrown in, but because he participated in that and took the seat unlawfully, he's a criminal. He doesn't get it. And I should have been there. So I should win the seat by default. By default. But I have 3 votes. He had none. And they didn't let us vote because it wasn't on the ballot, on the primary or the general. I couldn't even write my name in. And the clerk in the Board of Election, well, nobody did write-ins against him. And I said to them, that's because you didn't have them on the ballot. There was nothing to write against. So there's a big controversy about that. But that's where we are today in America, where we actually have to get, like they're doing right now as we're watching, they're right there, they're lined up at the Capitol. It's a great sight. They've got the American flag, they got their "Don't Tread on Me" flags, you know, and it's a sea of blue of folks with the red, white, and blue, and it's a good sight to see. It says America's on point, and you know, and we're not going to take this bullshit anymore. You know, how you? Well,
What? What'd you say, Darren?
I said, how do you feel about that, Paul?
That's a very good speech. We need to get everybody voting. Everybody got to get in there and do their part. Don't sit down on the job. We're like I say, we're gonna lose the country.
Yes, we are.
Exactly.
Yes, we are. Well, we hope we don't. I got to take this minute to mention that we are on Triplevibes. We're code Wind Talkers. I'm John. I'm Darren Aquino. My co-host John Fratangelo, and our special guest friend from back in the day when they were serving country, when men were real men, and they went in and fought the war as boys, and they just demonstrate such incredible character we don't see anymore in this country, but we're starting to see it again. There's something going on. There's a movement coming on that patriotism is coming back. And as we watch the challenges of this, Paul and John and myself, we're watching America being revitalized because of the attack on President Trump, the attack on the American values, because criminals want to dictate to the American people. So we want to thank Triplevibes Code Media Group for helping put us on there. As you all know, I created this show in 2014, but Carl Van Nevius III said, Darren, let me help, and he put us with this. So we changed it from The Advocate to Code Wind Talk to give a little bit of tribute to the Code Media, who gave me the spot to put this project of me and John to open the floor to Americans and veterans who have a grievance to bring here where it's all real. No fake news, none of that. We're not here to tell hardships. We're here to share a lot of thought of what's going on. You're exercising your full First Amendment here. And you're not going to be altered. You're not going to be censored. You're going to tell it the way it is. And it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. None of that matters here. What matters is if you got something to say, and if somebody stopped you from saying it, you're going to have that opportunity here. And if you're a veteran and you're out there and you're, you know, John knows we have a veteran that had some challenges and we talked about it here. It was a very emotional day. That's what's great about this. There's no cutting and editing right here. It's all real, everything. There's no editing here. And for those veterans out there who are feeling like you're on your last limb or somebody's standing on your last nerve and you just want to, you know, take your life, don't do it. Don't do it because America cares. We care. That's why John and me do this show, because he's a combat veteran who can identify with a combat veteran of today or yesterday. He's been through it all. He's got the scars to prove it, you know, but he's got the passion to prove it as well. That he's there for you. I'm there for you. And, you know, Code Wind Talk, if somebody's challenged, you're going to have that forum right here, right now. It's real, it's true. And that's it. You're going to have that. So we always like to say that. You know, we like to say go to codemediagroup.com. You can go to lastgoodbye-book.com. You want to get the book, The Last Goodbye. And we are having, we're going to be doing some auditions, me and John, and Dave is going to help us with that because we're looking for a character and characters in their early 20s, very early 20s. You have to look, you have to admit the age range because, you know, you got to be between 20 and 25. But some people, when I was 20, I looked like I was 15. You know, so we have those folks out there. But John was very built. He was physically, you know, he was a young Hercules, And you got to have that physical fitness. You got to have some Italian background or similar to that. There's a lot of cultures. You could be Greek and pass for Italian because it's European. So the skin color, all of that matters as actors. As you know, I'm an actor, so I'll be doing it with John to see if you have the ability. After we get past the appearance, then we're going to see if you can do the deed. And we're going to have those auditions, and you're going to be able to register with us. As I told you, soon you can contact us. You can send me a message at adavetspets@gmail.com. You can go direct message me on Twitter at Aquino #4 Congress. And of course, when you go to John and you're trying to get the book, you can leave a message there, because if you're going to audition, you need the book because you want to be one of the characters. Everybody mentioned in the book is going to be in the miniseries. That character will be, because they're all older now. They'll probably have some cameo appearances, and we'll figure it out. Those that can will. And this is going to be a great project. It's going to open up some opportunities for some disabled, because John and I are adamant about that. Opportunity that must be given to some disabled folks and some young disabled veterans that have some amputees and things. We're going to be calling on them to give them an opportunity and embrace them, and kind of like a leg up, no pun intended. It's what we do truly as spirited Americans, and that's why I love doing this show. And it's our time. So I figure about 5 more minutes, we'll be signing off. When did we get in on time? Would we come in at 2:08?
Later than that. I want Paulie to tell him about what he did after the service. It's very interesting.
Okay, let's do that, and then maybe about 10 minutes we'll wrap it up. I think, John.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Paul, you want to tell him what you do now? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Do what now?
We can't hear you.
You want to tell everybody what you do now?
What I do now?
Yeah.
I run a company. We do high explosives, a lot of it in the oil field, blasting for counties, road rock, private lakes, stuff like that. A lot of demolition work. And we're trying to back out of it and retire, but every time I tell them I'm quitting, they tell me I can't because nobody in the area does it. So I guess I'll just keep doing it. So.
And where are you located, Paul?
I'm located about halfway between Waco, Texas, and Fort Worth. Off to the west just a little bit, you'll see a big lake there. I'm right on that lake, Lake Whitney.
Oh, okay.
And, I started out, I worked 21 years for an engineering company. We built custom houses and all kinds of stuff, built football stadiums. We done everything, a lot of welding work. And then we worked at the missile plant in McGregor. And at that time, it was Hercules. Now that plant is the main part of it now is SpaceX. So they're out there now. But we've done a lot of work out there. And of course, the engineer I worked for, he retired. So I went into business for myself and started out doing steel buildings. And of course, everybody around town knew that we had done demolition work, for stock tanks and stuff. So I got back into doing that, and it worked out so good. I dropped everything else and just stayed with the explosive work, and it's turned out good. We've done some shots out in the oil field, 90,000 pounds of powder, making lakes and stuff where they don't have any water. We shoot them a big hole, and the bulldozers come in and shape it and put a liner in it. And they put wells around it, pump water. They got to have 1 million gallons to drill a well. So it turned out to be a really good thing. And I'm 74 years old, and I'm still doing it.
Good for you, man. Let me ask you a question. When you heard from John, you knew it was him right away? Like his name, like right away you thought of being in war with him?
Well, it didn't really ring a bell right away, but I'm not real good with remembering names. In all these businesses we've done over the years, I go through hundreds of people, And
of course,
it didn't ring a bell right away. But when he said John Pizza, then that kind of rang a bell. And I thought, well, golly, somebody survived. Because after I got out of the aid station, I went back to the company, and the sergeant told me not to go to the field because the battalion was coming in. Well, they come in, there's none of those guys are there with recon anymore. So I'm still a recon guy, so they organized a whole new recon. And I think Murphy showed up for a little bit. Then he rotated out, and we got another lieutenant. We got up on the Cambodian border and got in a big scrap up there, and it was even a bigger deal. But what I'm saying is, I didn't know that anybody had survived it because nobody came back to the field. You know.
So you didn't see anybody. So John is the only person you saw that you connected with?
Yeah, well, I did get a hold of Charles' house because I found him in a Purple Heart book, and I called him, and I got a hold of him on the phone. This has been 5 years ago, maybe. And he said he stayed in the Army 20 years, then he got out, he worked for the FBI. And he was having heart problems. I could tell listening to him on the phone that he was really having a hard time even staying on there talking. So we didn't talk long. I hollered at him later, and I never managed to get back to him. But later, after talking to John, then I called him to tell him I'd found John, or John had found me. And I guess it was his wife or somebody said he had already passed away. So,
oh, Jesus.
So, like I say, John's the only person that I've been able to talk to, and he found me in a Purple Heart book. I'd like to get a hold of Jay Murphy, which was our lieutenant, but I've searched everywhere, and I can't find him in the VA. I can't find him on the wall. I don't know what happened to him, but I know he's home because John got a letter from him, later, and he was at some base up in Washington State. But that was in 68 or 69, so nobody knows where he's at now.
So is he like the same age, 73, 74?
No, he's older.
How much older?
I think he was about 6. I think he was about 28, 29 back then, right?
That would seem right. He's about 9 years older than we were.
Right.
So
he'd be like 82.
That put him he'd be around 82, 83.
Yeah, that's like he'd be like 82. So he'd be up there. Maybe we could find him. Maybe there's a way to find him.
Yeah, well, I kept trying to hunt him under the name of James Murphy, but then after John got a hold of me and he showed me that letter, his name is Jay Murphy. Jay Murphy.
That's interesting. That's interesting. But I tell you, you're an interesting fella, and you went into demolition later. That's pretty fun. But again, I mean, we're grateful for this service.
Hey, Paulie, didn't you tell me about you had to dredge a lake one time for body or something?
Run that by me again, John.
Didn't you tell me about you had to dredge a lake one time when you were searching for bodies?
Yeah, we done a lot of scuba diving, and we would do body recovery, and we would pull sunk boats up and stuff like that. But yeah, we done it. There was 2 planes that crashed in an area over by Lake Belton, and we was out road hunting, which we shouldn't be doing, but we heard it on the CB, so we go down there to where it's at, and we asked them if they'd like some help, and they said, yeah, they was waiting on the divers to show up from the clean. So we went and got our gear and went out, and the water was ice cold. I've never been in water that cold in my life. I thought I was going to freeze to death. But there's a Texas Ranger in the boat, and he said, we believe they had a line anchored out, so we believe we got a hook on the plane down there. So they wanted one of us to go down with one of their divers because they didn't know our credentials. So I went down with the diver. I got in the water, and he was already in there, and he was turning purple. He's so cold. He said, let's stay here and get used to the water. I said, we're already wet. Let's get down there. We're in the wind. It's getting worse. So you start down the rope, the visibility, you couldn't see your hand if you held it out straight in front of you. I get down to the bottom of the rope, and the rope's over the plane, just like he said it was. And I start going down, and it gets smaller at the back. So I turn around and go the other way and go over the rope, and the plane's down in the mud, and I can't get the door open. So I go back up. Mickey hollers at me. That's my partner. And he says, come on, get in the boat. The other diver's up, said there's nothing down there. I said, hell, the rope's right around the plane just like he said it was, And that ranger asked me, he said, well, did you get the number off of it? You know how long the number is on a plane? I said, no, I didn't get the number, but it's a blue and white plane. He said, well, that's good enough. He says, both families are over on the bank, and now they know who it is. See, but anyway, we got the pilot out, and we got his daughter was in there. We got her, cut her seatbelt and got her out, but there was a young child in there, which we didn't find. And I seen on the news a couple of days later, they found her dragging with hooks, but yeah, we done body recovery there. We've searched several body jobs up here on this lake I am here.
Wow, that's horrible.
This is a big lake. It's over 100 foot deep.
So you're a diver too?
I'm a diver. I'm a certified welder. I got a Class A high explosive end user license. I've got a I've got several other licenses. I'm a plumber, electrician, everything.
Good for you. Good for
I've
you.
done all
Wow, man.
kinds of construction work, run all kinds of equipment, and I've kind of refined it down now to where I'm just running the rock drills and the test drilling equipment and setting explosives and stuff like that. And it pays plenty good, and I don't have to work full time at it.
No, that's good. What was let me ask you this before we get ready to check out 2 minutes. What was it like for you down there with the COVID in Texas?
Down there with what now?
With COVID, with the Chinese killer virus.
Oh, that's bad. Waco is real bad. I'm probably 25 miles out of Waco. But if you're gonna go to the store for anything, that's basically where you go, and it's real bad there. It's real heavy.
Really? Infected a
Everything's
lot?
been shut down, but you still got to go get groceries and stuff. But I always wear my mask and keep my distance, and I'd like to just stay right here because where I'm at here on the lake, I've got like 14 lots around me. I own all of it, and it's all steel fence, so there ain't nobody near me. And I could stay right here just fine. I keep everything in stock, so I stay here pretty regular. But once in a while, I have to go out. I had to go the other day. A friend of mine had throat cancer. He was in Nam. He's a veteran, and he needed a ride to the hospital at Temple. Now I have to go to McGregor, 35 miles, then pick him up and take him 25 miles the other way to the VA center in Temple. I'd take him down there to that. Of course, you don't go in. They come out and get him, take him in, and he calls me 2 or 3 days later, and I go back and get him, take him back home. But get out and do things, but you can't just lay down and die. You still got to
No,
operate.
we can't do that. We won't do that.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta tell you, Paul, it was great having you on today. We'll probably have a get together and we'll do a live show when we're preparing some of the characters that John is going to portray in this mini series, and maybe we'll do a show about that, and maybe we'll have a show where the character that we have and the person that's going to play you, or you know what I mean? That will be fun. Something like that. Like, here's the real guys. These are the characters. And of he's young, so we could match up to it. I'm anal like that. I like to get as close as I can to the actual, because you want to make it real. You want to relive it. You don't want to portray it. You want to relive it. So that the people, the audience, sees exactly what you went through. And I seen, like I said, my brother's friends growing up in the neighborhood. We remember when they left. I was like 10, but you remember them. You grow up. We were more advanced. The kids back in the '60s were more advanced. Different kind of kids growing up in the east side of New York, and floated around to all the boroughs because my cousins lived in the Bronx. My other cousin lived in Harlem, and Italian and Spanish family. On my mother's side was Spanish. My father's side was Italian, so it was all Italian. My mother even cooked Italian. She never made Spanish food. Very rare. So, but that was it was good to have you. We want to thank, of course, Dougie and Sean, Triplevibes. We want to thank Code Media Group. We want to thank John and you again for your service. We like to do that every show. You can't be told enough, I think, and I think I always encourage people. And we have the magazine I created with called CV19 Mag. It's about healthcare and going forward, and we're going to push that out for the market by next month, for sure, or by the end of this month, and we're going to just love it. And we want to thank everybody. So again, we want to thank, and remember, this show is dedicated to Cole Van Nevius Jr., Carl Van Nevius III's father. He's within heaven now, and we want to say, and our prayers go out to Rosa Spitorno, who's up in New York at an LIJ hospital, who has to have a surgery. It's my assistant national chief, Frank Spitorno's mom. So our prayers are going out to those families and all of you who are struggling with COVID and recovering back. And for our country and our president, we're praying. I'm not ashamed to pray. I'm not afraid to be a Christian. Although our values are being challenged, let them bring it. That's why we have a Second Amendment, for when they don't like our First. So,
There you go.
everybody,
Hang in there.
that's it. Thank you all. John, we'll talk later. God bless everybody. Thanks for joining us at Code Wind Talk. We'll talk to you soon.
Paul,
And we're
thanks.
out.
I'll call you.
All right.
All right.
We're out. Okay, we're out. Well, you got some interesting stuff there, Paul. You're an interesting guy. And yeah, thank you for your service, man. That must have been crazy back in the day.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what that was like while you're sitting in the brush and bullets are flying over your head.
Yep.
And you're 19 years old. Wow. That's got to be something.
Yeah, we've done a lot of crazy things, but
Yeah.
we're,
I'm still
we're
doing crazy
Americans
things.
all the way.
That's it. And we're going to keep fighting. If I wasn't here, I'd like to be in Washington today.
Yeah.
I'd be right there with the flag. You know, we know the Donald. The Donald come to the family restaurant for a very long time, for 30 years.
Do y'all have an open carry law up there?
They do, but you have to have you have to be like a security, you know. You
Well,
get
we got open carry in Texas, and I think everybody's carrying a gun.
I would love it. I'd like to wear. I got an old 22 1964 Colt, you know. So I love it, you know. I'd wear the cowboy belt. I would roll with that, you know, or this, you know.
I go over to my buddy's house, and he's mowing the yard, and he's out on a quick draw holster and 45.
Yeah, see, I love the quick draw. I'm down with that.
Everybody down here is packing iron, I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, well, we're gonna need it soon.
Yeah. And I got news for them. They're not going to come and get me.
Say again. Say again. Say again. I missed what you said. You got muscled out.
They ain't never going to collect guns in Texas, I'll tell you.
Yeah, over here too. The sheriff said there'll be no obedience if you mess with our Second Amendment. That ain't happening. I won't enforce that.
Yeah.
Because we got a sheriff, so that's a lot better than a local police.
Yeah.
The sheriff don't answer to nobody.